What is going on, and welcome back to Notiflection Gaming. Today we're taking a look at the PTR February release notes, and my god, is this going to be amazing for PvP players specifically. I'm not going to go through all the notes here. I'm going to slowly roll through it, and you guys can, stop and pause it where you see fit, take a look at what you want. But there are so many fixes, so many changes in this update. It's going to be insane. It's probably going to break a lot of stuff, so be prepared for that. But they're actually listening to the player base. I have to admit, for the PvP people, this is going to be a huge deal. So if you're like me and you love PvP in this game, I suggest not reading this with a drink in your hand or while drinking anything, because you're probably going to end up spitting it onto the computer screen you're reading this from. So let's just roll through this. I'm going to go very quickly through the world notes, the general AI fixes, that kind of stuff. I'll basically just highlight I'll highlight notable fixes, expeditions, and then I'm just gonna roll through. You guys can stop and read it where you want. To me, this stuff is not a big deal, but when we get to the PvP stuff, we'll take our time. Okay, so notable fixes, expeditions, they changed a couple things here and there. Nothing too crazy, nothing to be worried about. The world, fixes where players could build camps off of each other. How dare they take our fun away? How dare they do that? I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff. This was a lot of fun for a lot of people. Nothing too crazy else besides that in here. I mean, really, fixing where players pop up and down when interacting with giant elite point of interest orichalcum veins. I thought that was hilarious. Who doesn't love to dance when they're mining orichalcum? All right, so we'll keep going through. General AI. They basically made the AI a little smarter. And they also won't collide as they normally would, like amount of pushback from colliding with characters, which makes it better for us. But they also added in improved AI target evaluation algorithm to fix some instances of AI attacking locations the player has long since moved away from. This I thought was hilarious, because the enemies are pretty dumb. They'll attack you even after you moved away from a certain spot, 2 seconds late, which is fantastic. I thought that was hilarious. They changed that. Some other general AI fixes. Just gonna roll through this real quick. Expedition AI, Garden Genesis stuff, Lazarus, basic changes here and there. I'll leave it here for a second. Scroll down through. Feel free to stop it. Mutators reduced the desiccated timer from 60 to 45 seconds. I didn't think that was a big deal, but I guess it is. Normalize curse damage to ensure that curses are always a threat to players of any size health pool. People were definitely taking advantage of this. They were definitely skirting around this whole curse damage deal. I'm not going to say how, but if you were doing it, they're going to take that away from you. So just be prepared for that. Combat, big things happening. So weapon swapping. You can now swap weapons during hit reactions, dodges, traversal while using consumables, except weapon coatings. This will not interrupt those actions. There will be a 1-second weapon swap cooldown in these cases. Now that sounds terrible, but let's read the rest of it. Really let it sink in. Weapon swap buffers will no longer be canceled if you are staggered before the swap can occur. Perfect. Weapon swaps and attacks can now be queued simultaneously. If you press swap during an attack's recovery, then immediately press an ability key, the weapon will swap at first, swap cancel frame. That's awesome. Then immediately perform the desired ability, which makes perfect sense because this happens all the time where you're trying to swap weapon to spam, let's say for instance shockwave, and you're trying to swap and you're trying to spam that button. It'll already queue that up and it'll be good to go, and it won't, supposedly it won't freeze on you or backfire on you. Note that actions still have a buffer and cancel windows. That's normal. This change makes them easier to use and more reliable. We shall see. I hope it does. I pray to God it does. Dodging and blocking. We have shortened the recovery time of all of our dodges, which is fine. Transitioning to movement after a dodge should feel more fluid for all players now. It should. We shall see. Basic attack startups, melee and range, can now be dodged and blocked canceled up to 2 frames before the first active frame. Great. For melee attacks, the first active frame is the first frame the weapon can deal damage, and for the range attacks, it is the first frame that the projectile is spawned. That makes perfect sense. I'm glad they did that. If they made it when they start the attack, it would have been totally different. It probably would have slowed down dex builds actually a lot, so I'm glad they did that. When performing light attacks with a melee weapon, block and dodge inputs will now take priority over the next light attack in the chain, which is fantastic. I'm very happy with this. As someone who's just started using sword and shield, this makes perfect sense. This change is aimed at preventing accidental attack cues that leave the player vulnerable when they are intended to defend. Yes, this happens all the time when I'm trying to throw my shield up and my guy is just straight up attack, even though I'm trying to block. Jumping. Jumping off lower height objects will no longer trigger a fully committed land animation. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious when that happened. Attributes, 300 focus attributes. You'll now use regeneration when you hit 15 or less mana. Equipment load. Descriptions have been updated to include the amount of stamina consumed while dodging. Fine. Fix an issue where strafe movement speed would vary based on equipment load. This was kind of funny. So if you're strafing with heavy, you could strafe a little faster than you think you would. Bug fixes. Fixed attack cancels not working in shallow water. Fix an issue that could cause some attack animations to play incorrectly when used while running. Fix an issue where players could get stuck while resting at a camp if they were encumbered. I thought that was funny. Just stuck there permanently. Fix an issue where player was able to clip through outcropping collisions by using certain abilities while prone. This is should fix the war bug that people were using to get behind the base and sneak in. It should fix that, we shall see. Fix an issue that could allow players to avoid some damage from AoE attacks while in the prone position. This was hilarious, and I loved when people were doing this in OPR, so that's pretty funny. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these weapons. I don't main a lot of these. I'll stop on the ones I know extremely well, and I'm well versed in. Feel free to stop the video as you see fit. So right now, Bow is getting some updates. Fire Staff is getting a bunch of updates. Great Axe. So as Great Axe users, just a heads up, your gravity wall is going to be almost useless. We shall see. But basically, they're giving enemies the option to get out of the gravity wall without having to use an ability. So pulling force ends just before vortex damage occurs, allowing players a chance to escape by dodging. So that last blast that goes off can be dodged as well. Reduce vortex pull force to allow players to a chance to escape. This is, in my opinion, this hurts my soul to see that, but I guess it makes sense. When you get to the edge of the gravity wall, you can now get out of it instead of being just stuck in it. Removed unintended damage from initial pull area and effect of the vortex, which makes sense. Update and clarify the description of the ability. Yeah, fine. Maelstrom, nothing crazy here. Enduring Strike, nothing crazy here. Now, I'm not well versed in the Ice Gauntlet, but I saw this and this was fantastic. Ice Storm. Fix an issue where if two different players had different amounts of modifiers and perks for the Ice Storm ability, they could stack the damage from it instead of just being a single instance of damage. This is huge. This is going to fix the Ice Storm shit that people have been pulling in wars. I mean, I've only ran into it once personally against the company, so I'm extremely happy that they're fixing this. It was terrible miss on their end. So feel free to stop here, take a look at the other stuff. Life Staff, nothing for me because I don't use Life Staff. Musket got a huge changes for Musket. Rapier, small changes. Spear, small changes. Sword and Shield, since I'm new to this. Hitbox of this ability for Shield Rush has been moved closer to the player to prevent the situations where the ability could hit targets that appear to be out of range. The distance traveled by the rush has been increased to compensate for this loss of range, which makes sense because you would actually Shield Rush and it would look like you're going to hit them, but they'd still be out of your range. It made no sense. Reverse Stab Tactician, this upgrade will no longer reduce the cooldown of Reverse Stab. It will still reduce the cooldown of other sword abilities when triggered, which makes perfect sense because this is the ultimate tanking ability. If you don't know how to use this in your tank, you're tanking wrong. Reverse Stab is the most important of the skills for tanking in PvE. Leaping Strike. The leaping and attacking portions of this ability now have separate properties for their homing and movement in order to improve the overall accuracy based on distance. Adjusted homing for better translation against distant targets. Adjusted homing for more accurate and consistent tracking against closer targets. So, out of all the chase abilities in this game, Leaping Strike seems to be one of the better ones, and they're actually making it better because when you would attack somebody at distance, I mean, you would just throw your sword forward and just go a mile, and without the possibility of hitting somebody. I mean, you could still hit people in the back with this with Leaping Strike, but man, I can tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've actually jumped at somebody with Leaping Strike and I've just totally whiffed on it. It's just, it's been hilarious. They should do we should do a video on that and check that out. Void Gauntlet, Mending Evasion. Fix an issue where this passive would reset your lowest active cooldown in addition to its listed effects. I'm very surprised that Void Gauntlet isn't getting more buffs / nerfs / things looked at. I guess they think it's in a good place. My guess is, for healers, this is their main damage output. It makes sense. I mean, Void Gauntlet, although it sucks, it can suck a lot, you can definitely get around being by. Warhammer, Armor Breaker. Fix an issue where players could not buffer attack inputs. from any of the Warhammer abilities to the Armor Breaker ability. Hardened Steel. Reduce the damage reduction provided by the passive from 20 to 12, which makes sense. Update the tooltip to clarify that damage reduction occurs while any grit is active and not just the grit provided by heavy attack. That makes sense. Empowering Armor Breaker item perk fixed an issue where this perk was applying to all hits for 5 seconds, not just the initial hit, which was kind of hilarious. If you guys knew that was happening, this was kind of broken. Now, I'm not going to go through the perks specifically, but feel free to stop here and take a look at the stuff. Warren Invasion. Fixed issue where the Void Destroyer could survive after death. Its eyes were destroyed. Fixed issue where Cleansing Elixir was removing but not properly preventing the reapplication of debuffs. Players can access the scoreboard while waiting for respawn. Who cares? Here's the biggest thing for us PvP players. This is a huge step forward for New World, in my opinion. As it originally was a PvP only game, this makes me super happy. I'm so glad they're finally taking this to heart, and they're actually listening to the fans as far as the PvP sides. You PvE players have gotten, a lot of good stuff. They've kind of worked with you and worked out, with the crafters and the PvE players. Now the PvP guys are finally getting love. So I'm gonna skip over bugs, but let's just jump into tuning real quick. So reworked Outpost Rush scoring. Dealing damage now increases the player's score. So now when you jump into Outpost Rush and let's say you're a tank, and you're not getting a lot of kills, but you're definitely doing a lot of damage to a lot of enemies, you're finally getting points granted for dealing damage. That's how the score is going to be based now. It does not matter how many people you kill. It doesn't matter how many NPCs you kill. It's all about damage now. Reduce the amount of points granted for killing players. Great. Reduce the amount of points granted for killing AI. Great. PvP players, when you come in, just go and slap some people. Even if you got your ass whooped, just slap some people and you get your points. You don't need to kill NPCs anymore. Nameplates change, tell the crowd to priest, a lot of stuff. The NPCs in the Outpost Rush have been adjusted. Explosive barrels got reduced, the damage. Biggest thing for PvP players, adjusted rewards granted from Outpost Rush. Outpost Rush now rewards Umbral Shards on completion of a match. 100 shards for winning and 50 shards for the losing team. Must meet the minimum score threshold to be eligible for this reward. This will be the next PTR update. This is freaking huge. This is giant for PvP players. The fact that we know this is finally coming, this is going to be so big for us. Now you don't need to go out of your PvP zone to go PvE stuff to get to the final endgame gear score. Now you can finally do something you love, PvPing, although we all know Outpost Rush is kind of boring at this point. I've played it a million times over, we've done it a million times. It is boring, but at least we can now PvP and get our Umbral Shards. Other big changes for the PvP Outpost Rush. Outpost Rush now rewards faction tokens on completion of a match, which you always should have. Players must meet the minimum score threshold to be able to be eligible. Fine. Outpost Rush caches now reward 2 pieces of Outpost Rush specific armor and an Outpost Rush specific weapon, which is awesome. This is very exciting. I can't wait to see what these are like. Now you might be thinking to yourself, this is going to be terrible, but there's an additional 15% for a 4th item, a piece of Outpost Rush jewelry, which is great. That's very cool. There's a 2.5% chance that rolled Outpost Rush items as a named item. This is actually how it is now, apparently. That's how they're saying it. It was always 2.5%. They're keeping that. Significantly increase the likelihood that the rewards in the Outpost Rush cache will increase players' expertise. Also, a giant thing. That is so huge for us, because when you play Outpost Rush, you play 10 and maybe get 1 bump in expertise, which is terrible. 10 is like, how many hours? That's 3 hours of Outpost, 4 hours of Outpost Rush. Another big thing. Outpost Rush gear now rolls off a fixed list of perks that are more ideal for PvP. This means that traits like Beast Ward, which was trash, won't be found on Outpost Rush gear. Thank the Lord. No one wanted to see Beast Ward on a best in slot axe that popped. That's ridiculous, the fact that was there originally. Now we're actually going to see PvP oriented perks on these weapons and armor, which is amazing. That's so good for PvP players in general. Even for PvE players that hop in, you might even get a really nice PvP piece. That's great. That's all good stuff. So they removed the Beast Ward from Illusory Enigma and replaced it with Keen. That's fine. Please note that this change isn't retroactive. So sorry guys who already got that. You're kind of screwed. Players can now access scoreboard while waiting for respawn. Now, I didn't notice so far, and I'm just saying this now, that I did notice that you could access your inventory while walking. I'm not sure if that's in here yet, but I have not seen it yet. Maybe I skipped over it and missed it. If I did, guys, let me know in the notes in the comments below. But as of right now, I don't see it. Notable fixes: fishing quest, war camp loop PvP faction missions that reset when fast traveling. Fine. Small stuff, nothing crazy. Alligators, oh god. Okay. Back markers added. Blah blah blah. Okay. Economic progression. This is a big one for crafters and people who are crafting. Leveling for Arcana, armoring, engineering, furnishing, tool crafting, weapon bending, trade skills will now require 10 less experience, 10%. That's a pretty big deal. I mean, for people who are definitely crafting, as I know, I've done a couple of crafting things here and there. I'm not too big into it now personally, but I mean, that's great for people who are trying to max out their crafting. That's awesome. Fix an issue where preventing T5 family muskets from dropping. This also corrects an issue where lower tier family muskets were dropping at incorrect levels. Makes sense. I mean, really, in general, they just made a lot of good fixes, and as you can tell, they really put a lot of time into this patch. So hopefully, this PTR they flush out all the possible problems that could arise with all these fixes. I mean, we're probably gonna see another gold dupe, who knows? But I just am praying to God that these guys just kick ass and they knock it out of the park. So like I said, feel free to stop it where you want on these fixes. I guess some weapons dropping Lazarus Expedition were not salvaging into the correct tier of material. This has been fixed. I thought that was kind of funny when I saw that. Besides that, I mean, they updated some other notable fixes. Their UI and social stuff they fixed. Trade now has a chat channel, which is nice. No more spamming in the global chat. I'm sure it's still going to happen regardless, but it's nice. Let's see here. What else? There's just a lot of notable fixes here, guys. So take a look. Go through all this slowly. Take your time. I'm not going to read all this off to you because that's the last thing you want to hear. But a lot of fixes here for the February release notes, patch 1. I really, really have a good feeling about how these guys are finally moving forward. Especially for the PvP people, this is going to be huge for us. So, guys, once again, if you guys like this content, I know this is kind of a dumb update video, like whatever, clickbait for February release notes, but for me this is such a big deal as a PvP player. It made me so happy to read the release notes. I could not be happier. I will be dominating or trying to dominate or get my butt whooped in OPR as much as possible now. Getting ready for this new update. So once again, guys, if you like the content, you like the video, you like all the things, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me comments, do whatever you want to do, even if you hate my stuff, whatever you guys want. Once again, I really do appreciate you all. Peace out.